I'm going to talk about co-evolution, and I think hopefully I haven't seen most of the presentations today. I'm only available now, so I've kind of just joined, and I've pulled this together. So hopefully some of this has already been covered. If not, it should be a refresher. If not, it's new to you. That's good. So I think what we may have learned so far during the day is about the evolution of activities and practice and data. And we know all these activities, practice and data move from the left to the right over the map, and that's caused by evolution. And evolution is caused by competition from the users and the supply chain. So, and what we know from this is that, you know, the evolution, that's common to all types. So activities, data, knowledge. And we know this process is unavoidable because it's driven by the user and supply competition, and no single actor can prevent this. Yeah, so stuff is going to move from the left of the map to the right of the map. So what do we mean by competition? So Simon's definition is, you know, competition is conflict. It could be collaboration and it could be cooperation. So when we build our maps, we should look and understand where we're going to cooperate, where we're going to collaborate, and where there could be conflict. So that's one of the, I guess, key importance of when you build a map and design your strategies. Okay, and then there's the independence between practice and activity. So we know when, so in this case, a window. So we know that the practices used to manufacture windows have evolved over time, but the actual window itself has not. Yeah. So the result, so the activity, the actual window has not, and we know they're actually independent from each other, and we know that, you know, across other stuff as well. And we can see that with the co-evolution of compute. I'm sure Simon maybe talked about this earlier, or maybe someone else, but we can see that, you know, when compute kind of moved into the cloud, then there was new practices developed like DevOps, and now we've got FinOps. And now, you know, as we kind of move up the stack, we're getting to, you know, ML ops and machine learning and building practices around how we operate machine learning models and define, build, and operate, run them in the cloud. So we've got these practices evolving, and these you know happen over time, and it can take a long time. Yeah. So I think I just caught the end of Chris's remote working. So I think someone said we've been working on it for more than 20 years. Yes, we have. And, you know, the evolution on the map can take, you know, maybe 40 years in some cases. So, you know, maybe seeing remote working moving to the right as the practices evolve. And if we look, I think, well, how long has Google Docs and that been around for? You know, that's been around for a long time. So that kind of gave us the tools to work remotely a long time ago. But, you know, our kind of practices around that have not evolved. And I think we'll get onto that later about, you know, we can see the technology evolving, but our practices don't. And that causes... can cause inertia. Yeah. So what we see from the compute, the best practices is we have a lot of legacy applications, infrastructure practices, and when the new stuff comes along, we don't evolve. There's lots of inertia, and for many reasons. So there's 16 types of inertia. Yeah, and for many reasons, you know, those practices, not only the technology, those practices will not evolve in your organization, and you can get stuck, and the inertia, you know, can actually be fatal to some organizations, and it can, you know, be have a quite material impact. Yeah? So, and along with that is that kind of speed of change, so it's deceptive. So there's the exponential element of those changes is quite difficult to see. And if you're kind of trapped in your kind of product sphere in your enterprise and all you use is product, you haven't kind of adapted to cloud, all you'll see is like the new faster server come out, the new chip. But within that, the actual chips are exponential change, but you don't really see it because all you're seeing is the products. Yeah. So our belief is that change is linear, and it's not. And combined with our inertia to change, this kind of reinforces the notion that change is not rapid, which it is. Yeah. So this leads to the kind of boiling frogs. I think Chris just touched on boiling frogs earlier. So, you know, we that kind of interplay between evolution and inertia creates those different economic states. So really in that kind of product space, and it feels quite relaxed. They're just competing over new, faster products and better, maybe better phones or something. And it seems quite a peaceful state of competition, yeah. And it's relatively calm. But generally when you move between the different phases from genesis to utility, when you cross that kind of line on the map, it can be quite intense, and there can be that kind of state of war. But basically, when we move into the cloud space, for example, into utility, there is that kind of sense of war, and it becomes a lot more, I guess, aggressive between companies, and many fail. But I think part of that is that because we don't understand evolution, our environment, our practices, our staff, our people, our skills are based on this kind of peaceful state, and we're not prepared for war at all. And I think sometimes that that's kind of the worst thing. And if you're not prepared for war, you don't survive. Yeah. And if you look at the kind of boiling frogs thing, I think Chris just mentioned it. So the thing is, if you put a frog in a bowl of water and you heat it up at about 40 degrees, the frog will go to sleep, and he doesn't realize he's going to maybe die, be boiled at 100 degrees, and he dies a nice comfortable sleep death in their sleep. And many organizations are like that because they don't understand evolution, they're not prepared for war, and they don't develop very good they don't have a strategy, I think, frankly. So in summary, we've kind of learned that components evolved, and as they evolve, their characteristics change. Our inability to see and deal with evolution causes problems, especially when we look at kind of outsourcing and using one practice for everything's got to be agile or everything's got to be waterfall. That leads to lots of issues as well. And my own personal view is that the cost of inertia ends up in the end being your kind of technical debt, because you don't evolve, you don't use the latest technology, you make bad decisions. You're probably still putting stuff in a data center now, and if we look at it now, all that forms to be technical debt. So I'm just going to have a look and see if there's any questions or feedback so far. Right, Holger says hi. Hi, Holger. Right, so I'll crack on. So I think you should have learned a lot today. So go and test yourself. So there's a awareness and wording mapping. It's a free test. It only takes up to 20 minutes, and it'll test you on 10 different areas, and then you'll get kind of a feedback of how much do you know about Wardley, where should you focus your studies on, and then if you're really brave, you can go and do a foundation and get yourself certified. Now, this is the kind of really interesting bit of the presentation, and I've got a few maps, but they can be they could upset some people. Yeah, so if you want to leave now, leave, or you could maybe watch it later. So what we've learned is this kind of evolution, co-evolution of practices. And if we think of the title of this, what industry is kind of best at this, and I believe it's the porn industry. So if we look at the porn industry, they're very quick to use the latest technology. They're very quick to evolve the practices. I'm just going to have a quick look in chat, make sure everybody's still happy. Yep. And they're very quick at adopting new technology, and if it doesn't work, not adopting it. So if we look at this map of technology and practices within the porn industry, so originally, if you wanted to search for porn, maybe you had to go and find photographs, and you had to go, that required production, and maybe there was a physical space where they're printed, and then it kind of moved into the video. I think it was is it true that the VHS Betamax, wasn't it VHS had the most porn available, and that may have persuaded VHS to become the successor of the technology? And then they moved into live streaming, and then we can do some kind of predictions of technology and metahumans, and then get into the robotics. The production's changed. So originally recruitment would have been maybe through newspapers or online ads. And now it's done, via social media. Before, they used to use physical media. Now it's all kind of moved into that digital space. It was, kind of physical media, then it moved in computers, now it's going to move into phones, and it'll probably move to VR headsets and whatever new technology comes out. And we can see, that the actual the actual porn models, let's say they're custom built, and they're trying to move that into this kind of commodity space. And if we look, they're moving into like sex dolls, deep fakes, digital twins. Then we've got the kind of virtual reality, and then you will end up with kind of sex bots at some point. And the deep fake stuff now is there. Pretty much every new iPhone or Android phone now comes with this LiDAR capability, so you can capture people if you want to. And then you can start building digital twins. Maybe the technology's not quite there, but it's really in the gaming industry. They're really adopted this kind of technology, and it is possible now to create nearly very good avatars of yourself. And if we look at the movie industry, that's already been done. So it'll come to the desktop at some point, or to mobile phones. And we can see that over time, the porn industry, they're very good at adopting new technology, and they're very good at evolving their practices, which enables them to. So if we look at this, this is all statistics from the Pornhub in 2019. So they have 80,000 visits a minute, 77,000 searches a minute, and there's nearly 220,000 videos viewed every minute. Every minute, there's people checking 15,000 profiles. There's 300 friend requests. Every minute, there's an average of like 2.8 hours of content uploaded to Pornhub. Pornhub transferred 6,500 petabytes of data. This is their data from their annual report. There's a new annual report now, 2020, 2021. But interesting, over 98,000 new models joined Pornhub in 2019 because it's easier to recruit now, so they're going via social media. They don't need to go in the newspapers. They don't have to physically interview them. They can do it online, etc. And they become like verified models. Oh, what have I done? And we can see, there's 70 million messages in this kind of industry. So, and we can see, that the technology is evolving. So if we look at, there's emotional chatbots now. So not just chatbots, they're they tune to your emotions, so replica.ai. And we can see, there's lots of evolving technology around AI, around generation of faces, people, etc. that can be used, in the porn industry or just in general. Now, that's kind of like the nice side, if there is a nice side of the porn industry. But if we change some of the actors in this, so, I want to, abuse and children, for example, it's the same pattern, right? It's the same technology, but the models become victims. We don't advertise, we groom. When I say we, obviously I don't. And they're using the same technology, the same capabilities. They still evolve. They still use the latest capabilities. They evolve their practices to moving online. And we can see some of the data and the official statistics here produced on some papers. In the UK alone, there's estimated to be 80,000 people who present a sexual threat to children online, right? Law enforcement agencies in the UK are currently arrested around 450 individuals and safeguard 600 children each month, right? And that's the ones that are known about, yeah? But what tends to happen is they tend to hide on the right-hand side of the map in the online services where there's a billion people, and they can, hide in plain sight, frankly. And then we can see, in the development of AI and technology, there's a website called Generated Photos, and you can generate AI-generated photos of children, basically. You can say, I want them blonde, and I want them white, and I want them smiling, and click a button, and you'll get about 15 different photos. And we can see, like, the gaming industry, we've got the kind of the metahumans, and that's available on desktops now. You just need a decent PC. And we can see, like, from our map, these types of things will be exploited by these types of people, right? So I'm just going to check everyone's all right in the chat, yeah? And again, they're very good at exploiting new technologies, evolving their practices, and doing what they shouldn't be doing, basically. So there is the Convention of Human Rights. So quickly, it's to protect children. The UN developed this a long time ago. It's about no discrimination. You have the right to play and rest, and culture, protection from violence, and protection from sexual abuse. Now, there's only one country in the whole world that has not ratified this agreement, and there's a big flag, and it's the USA. So, I don't know why, but it's been attempted, I guess. But Bill Clinton couldn't do it, Bush couldn't do it, Barack Obama couldn't do it, Trump couldn't do it, and Biden couldn't do it. So I guess he's still got some time left to try and do it. But what we have is that a lot of our right hand side of our map are social media sites that come from the US, and the US hasn't adopted or ratified the Convention to Protect Children. So a little bit of for me next map, and I'll just check see if there's any questions. Everybody's still okay. So there is a website in the UK, the College of Policing, and it shows all the kind of procedures and processes for police. So what should armed police do, right? How do you manage intelligence as a person? How do you do live facial recognition? Over deployment of live facial recognition. How do you protect their mental health? And there's a huge of amount of information and policies and documents and procedures that you can look at. And if you look at them, you can start building a map of kind of policing, right? So on the left-hand side. So in general, the police, pursue, protect, prevent, the public, right? So, and to pursue and protect and prevent, they need situational awareness. So where are the crimes, who's committing the crimes, what type of crimes are being committed, and that usually comes from intelligence. So that could be people ringing up and saying, Mark's dodgy, or this is going on, or ringing 999 or 911. There's a crime happening, or this person's involved in a crime. And it could be through, other sources of analysis of kind of data that the police get their hands on. And some of this data is open, so it's not. Some of it's very private and very sensitive. But there's a whole process of a kind of analysis and then developing the intelligence, producing the evidence so you can take people to court. Now, in our current world, most of the criminals operate on the right-hand side of a map. So they use commodity services, they leverage new technology, and they evolve their practices swiftly and quickly, and they operate in plain sight on the right-hand side, using mobile phones, social media, etc. And we can see on the left-hand side that at some, we got self-driving cars now, but they will be involved in crime at some point, and when that happens, it'll be like the first time the police look at it and go, well, how do we look at the data in the car? Where's the car been? Who was driving it? We got the videos, all this kind of stuff. And this will be, so in this case, it's kind of like the practices and knowledge around self-driving cars. There is none in the UK at the moment in policing, I would say. There's none that I'm aware of. There's none on the website anyway. So how does policing, they need to think about this now, because in some point in the future, it could be 20 years, could be 50 years, but it's probably more like a few, that self-driving cars will be involved in crime in the same way that mobile phones and social media are. So at the moment, there are techniques and tools, as on the website, that says, you can get data from mobile phones and, and social media. So, there should be some development of thinking about these other sources of data and crimes in the future, and maybe legislation is required, etc. But what we see the policing in the UK is operating in this kind of product space and custom built mostly. So most tools are custom built, most of their procedures are custom built, obviously, I guess. And because of this, and because of the inertia of suppliers and to practices, and we talked about this earlier, and we've probably seen it a few times over the day, hopefully, that that kind of inertia to change, and we can't move to the right, so we get all this various types of inertia stopping, the development. Why isn't intelligence a commodity for policing? Why isn't situation awareness, more accessible? And analysis. So in this map, it's saying, well, actually, what we should do So we've got inertia from suppliers, so we need to, do something about them. But also this kind of analysis that uses public and private data, it's using custom built tools. What we should look at is maybe moving to more commodity based tools, using the cloud, using machine learning models, using data science skills and cloud skills, and kind of using data science to analyze the data, because there's a huge amount of it, mobile phones, social media, and there's just going to be even more over time. So we need to get away from these kind of custom built ways of analyzing data for policing, intelligence, and situational awareness, and we need to look, as a country and society, more other ways of looking at using data science techniques. But also, the ethics of that is also a key to that, and that's obviously linked to legislation as well, and kind of standards. So when we look at this map and we decide where we should focus our efforts, kind of as where we want the police to focus their efforts is, we need them to be, work with more flexible suppliers. We need them to, start using the cloud for analysis and data science, building data science capabilities and data science skills. And we need them to focus on the legislation and standards. Maybe there's some work need to be done around ethics. I know, so the police have got there's quite a lot of ethics boards and stuff around policing, and it's been around for a long time. But how do policing get better, easier access to skills and data and technology from all these different sources of data? And as new sources of data evolve and become apparent, so maybe self-driving cars, how do we get that data into these new capabilities of data science, so that we can build that intelligence and get that situational awareness in policing? Are you okay with that? I'll just pause. Any questions? Right. So I was planning for half an hour. So I guess the summary for me is that what we see is that failure to evolve your practices around the new technologies leads to huge amounts of inertia, and then it can be fatal for your organization. And that's, I guess, my summary of my presentation. And as a bonus, so if you want to learn more about warding mapping and you want to do it for good, so there's the Sustainable Development Goals. So these are huge goals developed by the UN, and all the countries have signed up to them. So I've got about 50 people signed up already. I haven't started the sessions yet, but we're looking to start the sessions at the end of this month, and then we'll actually do some wardley mapping for the SDGs and start looking at how the UN and other organizations and countries can produce better results around their sustainable development goals. And some of them, big ones around climate and protection of children and transportation, sanitation. There's a huge amount of them, and they're very big goals. So if you want to get involved in that, you can sign up here. And I think that was the end of my presentation for 30 minutes. So if you want to do questions, let's do that. I have got another presentation I could probably do if we want to fill the 30 minutes. Let me know what you want to do. Are you still there? Anybody want to join for a chat? Anybody out there?
I can share that. I cannot click on these links. We can only see the shared screen, so all the links.
I could probably just paste them into the chat, can I?
Yeah. Interested, but.
And I think we'll. I'm sure Holger's going to share the slides and that, or I can share them after doing it. So I'll just put the SDGs and the where you can sign up there. And Chris has been involved in that, and so is Alex at some point. And you might find some experienced warding mappers in the group doing some good. And Simon got involved in some SDGs at the very beginning, actually, when I was at the UN. So I'm sure he'll pop in now and again. Was there any other links I need to share? Oh yeah, look, you can. No, I can't get that one. Oh yeah, here we go. This is. There, you can all go and test your knowledge on Wardley mapping. There you go. And if you want to do the foundation exam, oh my god, on screen. If you want to do the foundation exam, let me know, and I can give you a discounted voucher. Yeah. So, I mean, that's my presentation on co-evolution, evolving practices. I don't know if anybody's got any questions. I've got quite a few other Wardley mapping presentations. I can fill another half an hour if you want me to.
Yeah.
If you can give us some thumbs up or something, I can find another one.
We are here to learn, so take the stage.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to just quickly stop sharing this. I'm going to find another. How do I stop sharing? Oh, there you go. I'm going to stop sharing that. I'm going to quickly find another presentation, and then we'll just do another one. This is the one I think the one I'll do is the one I did at FOSS 4G about open source. Yeah. Right. So this was a couple year 21. This was, but I can quickly skim through it. It did take more than half an hour, but I can quickly do another, just a bonus session. Right. So this was the one I did at FOSS 4G. So FOSS 4G is the free and open source software for geospatial. Yeah. So it's really good, actually. If you're interested in geospatial, pulling features out of images, satellite imagery, LiDAR, radar, all the different satellite techniques, there's a huge amount of open source software. Yeah. So this was quickly about the work we did at the UN Global Platform and how we used open source to save a lot of money for the UK economy and other economies. So the UN Global Platform is an area for all the global statistical offices to share and collaborate together, or in competition, I guess is maybe what would be one way of looking at it, but not compete against each other, but maybe compete at developing algorithms and methodologies. So these are the SDGs. So you can see there's big ones, like no poverty, zero hunger for people, good health and well-being for everybody, quality education for everybody, gender equality for everybody, throughout the world, climate action, etc. And the platform was developed using a range of open source software, so geospatial, a lot of Apache stuff, GeoServer, and Apache 9.5. So the strategy, so we use Wardley Mapping. We also use the Platform Design Toolkit, which is very good, actually, because it kind of sits above Wardley Mapping, helps you think about building platforms, but platform businesses, not really the technology, but how would you build a platform business? So that's really good. So how do we save 12 billion using open source software? So a couple of years ago, so we built a platform using open source software, and we streamed live flights and ship data into the platform. And during the 28 financial crash, it took the UK official statistics office 12 weeks to publish the official statistics said we've crashed. Yeah, so it took 12 weeks, right, to say we've crashed. And when I was out in New York, I was having hot chicken wings with a guy called Evo, and he was talking about statistics. He said, well, there's loads of different indicators. And one of the indicators of the 2008 crash was trade declined swiftly before the crash, and specifically container ships. And we were having this conversation. I said, well, hang on, we can get access to AIS data, which every ship over a certain tonnage length has to broadcast. It's free, it's open, you can collect data. You can analyze it. I said, well, maybe we could use that data and identify how many ships are moving around, where they're going to, right? So that was the kind of, so we kind of built and used, we didn't use open source as a weapon. I guess this was a bit about the Wardley strategy cycle. And, within that, open source can be used as a weapon, or perhaps it should, depending on your strategy. And within that kind of space of open source, there's kind of the four areas: the chancers, the believers, the thinkers, and the players. Right. So the players use open source to compete, and they use it for their strategic play. The chancers don't do either. The believers just use open source, but they don't use it strategically. And the thinkers think about strategy, but they don't use open source. Right. And so, so the chancers, they often believe that open technology won't impact them, but obviously it does, because they haven't got a strategy and they're going to lose. The believers, they just say open source is everything, open by default, but they don't think about it strategically. The thinkers, think about it, but they're not actually, they don't consider the impacts on their own and the competitive value, because they're not really thinking about it. They're not using mapping to identify that kind of strategic decisions, etc. And then the players, they will use open source as a means to compete. So if we think about that, if we think about Amazon, they're very good at encouraging open source. Once there's a good open source product, they'll take it, they'll absorb it into their platform and create some new services. Microsoft was rubbish at open source. They were chancers, and now we can see them kind of moving into this bit more strategic thinking about using open source, as a weapon and strategically. Yeah. So again, they'll encourage open source. The purchase of GitHub and all that open source code, allow them to develop the AI techniques around coding. I can't think of the tools called that helps you build code. Yeah, but you need the open source in the first place. And we know who's the boss of Microsoft and who's he been talking to. Yeah, so we can probably assume at some point maybe Microsoft are getting a bit more strategic about their use of open source. Right. So this is the I think, did someone else do this? The innovate, leverage, and commoditize. So when we think about our kind of strategy, what we want. So if we take Amazon, for example, they'll let everybody sit on the platform, develop stuff, use it, build new open source stuff, build new tools, develop new practices. Yeah, and what they'll do, they'll kind of identify that, and then they'll kind of bring it through their ecosystem, and then they'll kind of commoditize it and then release it as new services. Yeah, so all the time, Amazon's capabilities are getting better and stronger, and this is happening faster and quicker because they're letting people innovate on the platform, and they're basically stealing the good stuff and then building it into their services. Right. Right, the platform business model. So basically, there's a really good set of tools and techniques for thinking about platforms as a business, not as a technology, right? So and there's lots of thinking in there about platforms. The means of connection. How do you orchestrate your ecosystems? Using the network effects. How do you aggregate supply and demand? How do you build that data insight, basically? And how do you remove friction and make that as seamless as possible? So if you think about, Uber, Airbnb, it's really easy to onboard. They make it really easy to connect with the supply and demand. They utilize the network effects to get more people on board, and they really orchestrate that kind of ecosystem by, they brought in like the super host and other hosts and other different categories, and they really kind of watch it and identify it, and they use that kind of data from their platform to build better capabilities and knowledge. So that kind of learning engine around their kind of data, they use that to build better products and other services. Yeah. So I'll just skip through these. You can have a look at them later, because I've just basically did a short version of that. Oh, this is important. So when you build your platform model, the rate of innovation is no longer dependent upon the physical size of your platform, but the size of your ecosystem. Yeah, so this is why Airbnb, Uber, and other dating sites, that link supply and consumer together, can grow so quickly and innovate so quickly, because they're not really linked to the physical size of the platform. Maybe Uber though, with the taxi drivers in the cars, but it's a lot easier to grow a platform business than it is for a traditional product-based business. And the way the platform business evolves so quickly is because all members of the ecosystem can provide information on improvement. So they're all contributing to it. If you monitor your performance in your support desk, you can identify ways of improving your platform. You build that into your learning engine. And basically, the bigger the platform gets, the more innovative you get because you're getting more feedback and you're learning more. And then, you get that kind of efficient and customer focused, right? More efficient customer focused it becomes because, you're learning from your customers, you're identifying trends and patterns, and you put that into your kind of learning engine, and you learn about your own platform, and you learn about new opportunities. So I think Uber was maybe a good one. So was it in Japan that people were just booking Ubers for an hour and they were just eating their lunch in them in Uber, which is potentially a new business model. And the other thing with platforms, I don't know if it's on this side, but you need to design for failure as well. So don't constrain your platform too much. So if people are booking your Uber to sit in it for an hour and eat their lunch, that's something new you've learned. Yeah. If you disable that capability, you wouldn't have learned that, and you wouldn't have identified a new opportunity. So we saved 12 billion. Yeah. So basically, we sucked a load of AIS data and AWS data into a platform. In fact, there was over 100 billion records streamed in. There's about 40 million records a day streamed in. So this was the kind of open source stack we used. There's a report though on different types of capabilities. So it's all in kind of like Amazon, and we work with the guys from the ADSP guys, ADSP Exchange. So they fed the data into our cloud, and then we pumped that into a big data platform where it was analyzed, and basically it was identified that looking at the kind of visualization, you can see the shipping lanes, and basically when COVID happened, we could actually just see there was no cargo coming out of China. We could also see where the flights were coming from China, and we could identify which countries would be impacted most by the amount of flights coming out and where they were going to. That data was looked at over a few days, over a weekend. It was fed into like the UK Treasury, the Cabinet Office, and that allowed them to make decisions on the economy quicker than if they waited 12 weeks for those official statistics to come out. And by making those decisions in a weekend instead of 12 weeks, it basically saved the economy at least 12 billion. And that wasn't just for the UK, it was the US and many other countries using the same platform for similar statistics. And also, the practices and algorithms and methodologies developed on this. When we had the problem, was it the Suez Canal? There's a cargo ship stuck and none of the freight could get through. So you could see that again. You could identify that. You could identify the trends and potential economic impact to your country. So that's how we saved at least 12 billion. And you can see, some of the screenshots from the platform, how we can see flights flying around and cargo ships leaving Shanghai. Yeah. And then you can this data is open, it's free. You can monitor it. You can make decisions on it. And you can save a lot of money for your organization. So this is just some links for the open source community AI, the Phos4G people, to go and have a look. And I think that was the Phos4G presentation in 20 minutes. Yep. So let me stop sharing and we'll go back and see if there's any other questions. How are we doing? Is that the Stefan? Yes, that's it. So they've actually got a couple of other toolkits now. Let me just go on the link. Yeah, that's the platform design toolkit. They've got the opportunity exploration one as well now, but it's the platform design toolkit. And actually, Simone actually runs some workshops on how to use it, how to be a facilitator for it. So they're very good. I did one myself in person in I think it was Milan, but I think he actually runs them online now because he's evolved his practices. Yeah, and he's still there because he has evolved. Yep. So anybody want to join me, have a chat? I know it's a Friday afternoon. We good? So we call it a day?